Hey, this is Chris with PhishingBox. Today we're going to be walking through some template configuration. We're going to tie that back to a campaign, and then we're going to jump into some reporting. From the template library, we're going to jump in here. I want to go with something that's particularly relevant right now. Certainly everyone is still dealing with COVID and COVID procedures. So I'm going to jump into a welcome email. This simulation is going to look like it originated from an internal stakeholder and that they've been enrolled in some type of COVID program. This template in particular is doing a couple of things. It's populating some variables, so here you can see we're populating first name. We're also populating company name, so it's going to be more targeted to the end user as a result of it. In its current configuration, we're looking at a three-step progression. So if someone interacts with a link in this email, they'll be taken immediately to a landing page. That landing page looks like just a pretty friendly how to protect yourself type of page. I'm going to change the configuration to this. Instead, I want to see how far down the rabbit hole our end user is going to go. And so my goal with this is to see if someone's going to give up any type of credential. Currently originating from the COVID-19 healthcare team, we can change the domain and how that's configured. I like the way this looks right now because it does feel like a little bit more of an accurate experience. If we wanted a stronger social indicator for this being a fake email, we could go with another domain that would be nonsensical in this, so maybe like a facebook.com, but instead I'm going to leave it as this WHO COVID-19. It's populating a variable in the subject here as well. The completion settings are how we control the progression of events. So currently we're going to a COVID-19 welcome page. Instead, I'm going to jump into a COVID healthcare sign-in. Still tied to the same domain. We can see now that rather than being a welcome page, actually it's going to take a sec to load, so I'll save that. Click OK. Now we're looking at a sign-in page. We can set the progression of failure to be a few areas. It could be as simple as just clicking the link in the email. It could be breaching this field, so maybe I'm using a password manager. We could set that as failure, or it could be clicking sign in. At this point, what we're going to want to do is really utilize our end user's attention span and try to correct some of this behavior at the point of failure. So rather than leaving this as a dead link, we're going to do a redirect to a training page. This is what we call a just-in-time training moment. It's going to be minimally disruptive to the day, but it's also going to be immediately relevant and contextual. It's going to be minimally disruptive, so think 30 to 60 seconds long. It could be something as simple as just a Java pop-up. Hey, you've just failed an exercise, your manager's going to reach out to you, or we could go an additional step. I want to go with something pretty friendly, something interactive, but we do have a variety of experiences ranging from infographics to best practices to embedded slideshows. But let's go with something interactive. So now if I click sign in, taken to a training page, it immediately alerts you that you failed an exercise. Good news, it's a part of security awareness training. We've got the key social indicators on what to look for in a phishing email, and if we want to preview this and actually see what it would look like in the wild, we can click preview. We're then taken to that landing page. This pop-up right here is going to give us those social indicators. If I'm not familiar with the terminology, all we have to do is mouse over. It's going to give you an explanation of what that really means. It's all mobile friendly as well. And then from a compliance standpoint, I understand I failed an exercise, training completed. That's then logged in the platform as well. In this current configuration, I'm really happy with how this looks, so I'm going to go ahead and save it. Now that it's saved, I'm going to roll this out in a campaign. The campaign configuration process is designed to be really simple. We want to automate as much of this as possible. So it's really just 4 steps. I'm going to go ahead and we'll say this is a COVID-19 fall 2020. Pick a small test group. Rather than structuring this to recur with some type of automated function, whether it be weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, or quarterly, we're going to structure this as a one-time test. I want it to initiate next week. Want a couple of weeks of tracking activity so we can include those users that aren't necessarily clean inbox users. So links will remain active for 2 weeks. We can still include them in the data set, but there is a firm cutoff date. From there, we're going to determine how we actually want to send our emails. While certainly it can be useful to deliver all emails at once, if we're testing any type of population, we have to worry about the social aspect to what we're doing here. So let's instead randomize it. It'll reduce the likelihood of recognition. We'll say standard work week, Monday through Friday. I want to increase the likelihood of failure on mobile devices. So I'm going to have them sent earlier and then later into the evening, and just have that single test email be sent to every target, but have them trickle out over a period of 2 weeks. Not everyone will receive them at the same time. It'll just reduce the likelihood of recognition. At this point as well, I would also like to take advantage of some type of action-based enrollment into coursework. And so rather than having to dig through a report, we can automate that course enrollment. Save and next. We can pair specific coursework with specific failure action. That's an action-based enrollment. And so for some type of failure, by clicking a link in an email, we should pair something remedial like a Phishing 101 course. If they're taking action on a landing page, it's generally going to be related to a credential harvest scenario, so let's go with some type of ransomware focus. We can structure a reply to action, so some type of social engineering. And then for repeat offenders, we'd like to also automate some type of remediation training. If they're not getting it, we should maybe take them back to square one or put them into a special program like a new hire security training, indicate due dates, so on and so forth. From there, I'm going to pick my COVID template and how it was configured. Let's go with add. Our only requirement is to send a single template to every end user. We'd meet that requirement. First name, last name, email address is going to be the minimum amount of information required to add someone as a target. But if we have additional information pertaining to, say, department or role and responsibility, physical office location, these type of variables are going to change an end user's access to information, which means we should also use them to isolate those users for more specific attack vectors. In this case, I'm going to include everyone in the sample group. Keeping this user group up to date is really simple. We have multiple automations for this, whether it be an LDAP configuration, but if we're using Office 365 or Azure AD, we may as well use the Microsoft Graph integration. This allows us to sync that directory information to the PhishingBox platform every day. If there are any changes to that directory information and that group is referenced in a test in the future, it'll automatically update those so we don't have to go back and do it manually. I'm going to add everyone. And our last step here is really just verification. This is kind of our last look. Gives us a chance to see what emails we're using, where they're originating from, what our send schedule looks like, and finally the group that we've chosen. I'm going to click finish, and now this is going to run. From here, I'm going to jump into reports. We have a couple of ways to handle this. We could certainly look at a group dashboard. At this point, I would like to instead break out a report for a specific quarter of testing. So I'm going to use our report generator. The report generator is very, very simple. It allows you to edit the cover pages. You can change the logos in here so it looks tidier. From there, we're going to be indicating the context behind how we actually structured a test. So maybe I'm saying that this is our season's COVID-19 training, who prepared it. And then from there, we're just going to be toggling sections of reports on. We can certainly use our pre-built reports. They have defined sections that will be included. We can also customize these as well. So if I wanted to look at an individual report, for example, I have an end user in mind who's known for being particularly not careful. We'd call him a frequent flyer. I'm going to go ahead and select him and generate a report specific to this end user. Submit. Once this report's actually been generated, we can do a couple of things. We could save this as a PDF. We also have the ability to email it directly from the platform. So if I'd like to distribute this to this end user's boss, for example, maybe I want to distribute it to the end user specifically to say, hey, I really need you to take this coursework. I need you to take this seriously because this is what your failure activities look like. Certainly a very useful training tool. Every individual section can be exported if need be. So here we can see overall pass failure data. We can see our actions breakdown. From there, we're going to see every test summary, the worst action that they've taken, whether they passed or failed, so on and so forth. The next part of the report is probably my favorite part. This is an actions breakdown. We can see the actual progression of failure activity for an end user. So in the case of, say, this test here, it took us 3 days, 19 hours, 46 minutes to get to it. They opened the email, they clicked the link in the email, they then viewed the landing page, they submitted some credentials and then they clicked all the way through to completion. We can see some device information as well. If there's any type of device jump, we're going to see that from here. From there, a little IP map, an enrollment summary. So this is my major concern with this end user. They've had some failure activity. They've also been enrolled in 6 courses and they're overdue on all of them. Some have due dates, some don't, but certainly they're overdue and they need to take this coursework. Finally, an appendix for those users that are probably less familiar with the terminology. If we need a broader report for, say, a specific quarter of testing, I'm going to go with a full report. Actually, let's go with a full report. And then we'll say quarter, PhishingBox quarterly. I'm going to toggle a couple of sections on here. I'd like to see a comparison chart. I'd also like to see a click rate by department and by managers. A little action summary here as well. In the case that we're going to be distributing this at large, we don't always need to have that personal identifying information in here. So if we do need to anonymize the report, we have the ability to redact target email addresses and redact target names as well. This will function to take a little bit of the sting of the report out. I'm going to leave that on for now. Submit. And now we're looking at a report specific to this quarter's testing. We can see all of our metrics here, the number of emails sent from our servers, opened, clicked. Data extended is going to be a catch-all term for the most adverse failure action, who's received training, and ultimately who is critical and empowered enough to actually be reporting these emails as phishing. This is our goal with our end users. 100% want to be instilling that in their mindset, that if you see something, say something. And in this context, it means reporting an email as phishing. As they report, we can tie it back to the end user. As emails are reported, it's also going to tie to one of our key metrics, which is the net reporter score. A negative net reporter score means that there are more people that are interacting and clicking through phishing emails than reporting. If there's a positive net reporter score, it means that there are more people that are identifying emails and reporting them, which ultimately means our overall risk profile for phishing and social engineering is going to be lower. Below that, we can see all of our outbound and target response metrics, our training metrics, our click rate by department, because I did include that. We're going to see all of our failure activity breakdown here. Also, if there are any reported emails, we would see that from here as well, but we can see every end user, all of their activity, IP map, a breakdown for every target in this entire test, so those with no action. We can even adjust the bar for what's a pass and what's a failure. Finally, an appendix. That's it for me. Definitely, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, www.phishingbox.com. We're always happy to help. Let us know how we can do that.